Hey gang, today I want to talk about finding a therapist with my friends Karen and Audrey. No, Karen, Audrey and I are not going to a therapist together, but they're going to have some great insight and some input into this process. There are, for those of you who are questioning whether or not you're transgender, a therapist might help you find out for yourself, or for those of you who are looking to transition or to figure out a way to integrate this into your marriages or whatever, or your lives, a gender therapist can help. A good gender therapist can help. Someone that calls themselves a gender therapist maybe can't help, all right? So we're going to talk about different ways of finding one that will work for you. Now, there are 3 websites that I have researched a little bit on, and you can go to them and to find gender therapists in your area. Now, the first website is called, the URL is called therapists.psychologytoday.com. So it's from the publication Psychology Today. Okay, so simply therapists.psychologytoday.com. And when you go on that website, there will be prompts. You know, what is it you're looking for? What kind of therapist are you looking for? You know, and then where's your zip code, so you can find one in your area that has put themselves on that list. And these are therapists that have claimed to have experience working with transgender people, or they have knowledge in the transgender field. You know, that's a claim they make. So that's one way of finding them, and we'll get into, you know, vetting them later. The second URL that you might want to look at is Susans, SUSANS.org, and a lot of you folks out there may have already be familiar with this website or webpage, Susan's Place. I noticed when I was on there that it seemed like most of the references to therapists were in other countries than the United States. I couldn't seem to get one that was just like strictly related to the United States.
That's what I was going to say, it's an international website.
The third website that you can access to find out where there's a therapist in your area is called drbecky/therapists.html. That's a long one. drbecky/therapists.html. And once again, you're going to find a clearinghouse for therapists in your area. And you can follow the prompts to get to gender therapists and put in your location. There's also a Google search that you can do for the LGBT centers in your area. And a lot of those will have low cost avenues to gender therapists if you're financially strapped. They're not gonna do it for free if you can afford to pay it or if you have insurance, but if you're financially strapped, you can get in there and save a little bit of money and maybe speak to them. And I know in the Chicago area, is it Howard Brown?
Howard Brown.
Howard Brown, if you Google Howard Brown in the Chicago area or Indiana or Wisconsin, you know, anywhere around there, within a couple hours of Chicago, they have some pretty good therapists down there. They're a very good organization.
My current gender therapist, which I'm seeing, I completely use word of mouth. I don't like going just online or going cold turkey towards a therapist. I like to talk to friends, talk to people at your support group, and they'll be able to direct you towards a good therapist. Someone that's knowledgeable, someone you can communicate with. I wanted to mention that as well as there is the Open Door Clinic in Elgin, which is also another group.
Elgin being?
Elgin, Illinois.
Elgin, Illinois.
Yeah, as well as Chicago.
Okay.
As well as the Harold Brown.
Howard Brown.
Howard Brown, which is, I think the Open Door Clinic is relatively a newer establishment, but I do know a couple of transgender women that do go through there.
So I would like to stress the importance of seeing that therapist, because this is a very, very hard situation to navigate through on your own. And therapists, from my experience, that I believe even if you're not transgender, going to a therapist every now and again makes sense to talk through things, because in a sense we're all alone. So we may have a spouse who's supportive in some manner, but we have some kind of problem we're trying to work through. It's even more intense for transgender people. So I would really recommend people to find a therapist and go to a therapist to help work through issues. Like for me, I'm trying to figure out how to come out to my family, and the therapist is very helpful in coming up with the way to do that. So the way I found my therapist this time was, I was at a support group meeting, and I was being told by people, you must find a gender therapist. There's a list of them here, a list of them there, and then I went to the store that we go to in Chicago called Transformations by Rory, and Rory said, well, there's a therapist who comes in here and some of the girls go to her. So I gave her a try, and so she's awesome, and she's not really like a gender therapist, she's a therapist who has some transgender people. But I think our problems are, in a lot of ways, very similar to other people's problems, and I think a good therapist can help solve transgender problems as well as other problems. I think that the key thing is you almost have to interview them, because do you relate to them? Do they communicate to you? Are you on the same level with them? And so I found a therapist. I'm very grateful that I did, but you know, I think you might try one and it doesn't work out, then try another one. There's many therapists in the sea.
Now, the very first, I'm sure that all my subscribers out there have already diagnosed me, and you've already made up in your mind what I am. Am I transgender? Am I transsexual? Am I whatever? Because that's what people do to each other. My first social worker that I spoke to, trying to follow the Harry Benjamin standards of care for transsexuals, where you have to sit down and you have to interview with the counselor for so many visits, and then they had to diagnose you and then decide whether or not you were suitable for hormonal replacement therapy. Okay, so after spending a lot of money and seeing him a bunch of times, and he met with my wife, and then he came up with the fact that I wasn't actually transgender, I was simply depressed, and I just did this to escape from reality. And so I got a second opinion. And
Good thing.
I don't know. Are you sure? You didn't have licensed clinical social worker after your name, so I don't know. But
I'm working on it. They can also tell you about the possibilities. So I was going to my therapist, and I wanted to go to work dressed, but because I'm dual gender, I didn't want to go to work as Audrey all the time. She said, well, why just go as Audrey when you want to go? And it's like, this is the most unthinkable thing I can imagine, is that I'd be going to work one day as Audrey and one day as Jim.
And you were trying to draw a complete line. Well,
I wasn't sure.
Audrey,
No, I was thinking it wasn't
Jim.
possible. I thought if you do this, people's heads will explode, people will be dead in the streets. It would be bad. But then I started doing it. Nobody died. I didn't die, and I'm still doing it. It's very fulfilling for me. But my therapist is the one who said, look, this is a possibility. This is something you should consider doing. And I likely would never have done it had I not gone to a therapist.
there you go. Sage advice indeed. Anything you want to add?
I don't have anything else.
Hey guys, thanks a lot for watching, and love and peace to all. Let's just try to accept one another for who we are.